There are many shades of leadership, and today, what we will attempt to do is to bring some perspective to the term leadership. In today's broadcast, we're going to be looking at leadership and predictable outcome. But beyond predictable outcome, what makes a leader stand out? From our standpoint, from my standpoint, we want to hold leaders to a high standard. And there's a couple of things that I'm considering when I focus on that standard. First of all, in working with the right leader in business, you want high reward, you want measurable results, predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy. The big questions: can we hold our leaders to such high standards? So today we're going to go do a deep dive into this type of conversation. Now, to support me in this conversation, I have three dynamic personalities that will be joining the conversation. I have Shivani M. Sinarain, and she is a project management practitioner. And what she will do is to help us to understand leadership from a project management standpoint. I also have Paul Whitehouse, and Paul Whitehouse is a business finance consultant, and he's the guy that really does the legwork to ensure that your business is properly funded and you're able to grow and scale your business. I also have Clement Frank, and Clement Frank, he has a background in economics. He's an economist by profession, and he's also a certified leader coach. So, with that being said, I want to welcome each of you to today's program. And it's such a pleasure to have each and every one of you here today. Today, we're discussing leadership and do we hold leaders to high standard in business? So that's the broad conversation that we're going to be having today. So I'm going to just leave the floor open now. I'm going to reach out to Paul. Paul, can you talk to us about some of the financial instruments that you have before we crack the conversation open?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Financial Patriot Business Finance Consultants, that's who we are. And we assist businesses obtain the financing that they need to grow with the best results and the lowest cost of money. So, what type of financing is that? That would be financing for equipment. You might ask, what type of equipment? Well, as leasing is concerned, the equipment that you can lease is defined as anything that improves the efficiency or profitability of your business. Basically, it's everything that you need to run your business. It's kind of obvious if you own a trucking company, the trucks. But beyond that, if you need a whole bunch of computers in your office because you have a very large trucking company, you need to buy 50 computers. Well, that's another thing that can be leased. Real estate financing, commercial and investment, not owner occupied residential, but commercial and investment property financing. We got that for you. The equipment financing and the real estate financing, the range is outstanding credit, good to excellent credit. Absolutely got you covered. That's a very easy approval with the lowest cost of money. And then, bless you.
Thank you.
And yes. And if you have difficult credit, money down turns a no into a yes. With every lending scenario, that's the way it is. Other than if you're at the bank, because the banks have a certain they got guidelines, and if you are 1 or 2 points below their score, or if you are outside of their guidelines, whether it's a mile outside of the guidelines or 1 inch outside of the guidelines, that loan officer at the bank can't say yes to you. He's bound by what he can do. Let's compare that to the lenders that we represent. The lenders that we represent, it's their money. It's not depositors' money, and they're very flexible. Their guidelines are, well, it depends on the individual lender, but with some of these lenders, zero credit score, money down turns a no into a yes. Others are 600 minimum and up. But The point I'm making is you are approved. We can make it happen for you. We have a wide network of lenders, and they want to say yes. They don't want to say no. Here's why. They make their money on putting money out there, and that's the only way that these lenders make their money. I mean, money's their inventory, and they need to get it off the shelves. I've said that before, but that's the fact. Whereas a bank, they make money on lending, they make money on credit cards, they make money on auto loans, they make money in many different angles. Our lenders only make money on equipment financing or real estate financing. So there's a couple more products, but I don't want to talk too long. I'll get into that at another time. And you want to work with us, patriotbfc.com, Paul at patriotbfc.com, or email Gary. The email is going to come across here in a little bit, but make sure you email Gary and I at the same time so we can coordinate and set an appointment with you.
All right, thanks for that share, Paul. Now, I want to get the conversation started on today's topic by looking at some of my experiences in business. Every so often, a client or potential client is going to ask you, what is the fastest way to cash flow your business? And being trained in business, understanding some of the elements of doing business, and one of those elements is that it takes a business about 5 years to reach that break-even point. And you recognize that over a period of time, that is not what the rising star in business wants to hear. All right, they cannot survive that 5-year growth curve, and the facts are showing that. Because as we look at some of the reality, what we saw is that in 2021, 20.8% of business startups failed. They could not have survived that 5-year curve. In 2022, we see 40% of business startups that would have failed. They too cannot survive that 5-year growth curve. And in 2023, we see 40.9% of business would have failed. So leaders are now being challenged to come up with smarter, faster way to help rising stars in business to cash flow their brand. So today I want to talk about a couple of things. Is there a fast or faster way to help rising stars in business to cash flow? I'm going to share with you some of my experience, because after having to deal with the question for so many years, I recognize that I have to do deeper research and to really understanding the market dynamics, because sometimes the key is understanding the market dynamics, taking into consideration that many businesses will not survive that 5-year growth curve. So I start to ask myself, is there really a way to help businesses to cash flow faster? And surprisingly, what I have found is that, yes, there is a way. And that way begins with either you becoming an influencer or you connecting with influencers that are able to help you to break through that know, like, and trust factor. And you becoming an influencer, it means that you have to be solid as a leader, solid in understanding business. You have to be solid as a subject matter expert. So now the big question here, how many leaders can deliver what we are calling high reward, measurable results, predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy to a rising star in business? One of the things that we do is today we have developed a signature initiative that we call the GIP initiative. And what GIP stands for, it stands for Global Influencers Partnership Program, where we are now able to work with our community, rising stars in business, and we can say to them, hey, we're going to help you to become an influencer. And 2, we're going to we're going to expose you to a platform that has over 2 billion potential consumers. And along with that, we're going to carry you to a platform where we can also monetize you within 2 months. And that to me, we not done that research, we would have remained on that 5 year curve. But for us, we are asking ourselves, how can we deliver high reward to the client? How can we deliver measurable results to the client? How can we deliver predictable outcome to the client with the highest degree of accuracy? And as a leader in business, the last thing that you want to be doing is taking money from a client, knowing that you may not be able to deliver results, predictable outcome. And I'm happy that after we would have challenged ourselves, we have now come up with what we call a formula that can really help businesses to start to cash flow in the shortest possible time. So I just want to introduce the top talking point here, and just to leave the floor open. I want to come now to Paul. I know Paul would have had some conversation, but I want to look at some predictable outcome when we are dealing with Paul matters. When one of the predictable outcome that I see with Paul platform is that I can say, Paul, I have a client, and the client needs to access factoring. Can you walk me through the pre-qualification process to access factoring? And I can literally predict that Paul, as a leader, at the end of the day, he's going to be able to deliver on factoring. Paul, I just want you to give me like a step-by-step approach as to how you can get predictable outcome with factoring or real estate investment, just to help the public to understand some more of what we're talking about when we talk about leadership and predictable outcome.
Yes. Sorry about that noise earlier. I was switching computers and I didn't have it on mute. But on factoring, the predictable outcome with factoring, it's very simple and easy. Okay, obviously you have to be in business. You're the client. You have to be in business, no lawsuits. That's pretty simple. And then the other questions would be related to your clients. Your client's credit and your client's payment history is what determines whether you are approved for a factoring relationship. It's not you. It's me, not you. Well, right? Okay. Uh, trying to be funny.
I got you.
Yeah. So the client obviously just have to be a company in good standing, but for that our client to get approved for factoring, then it really depends on their customers' credit worthiness and payment history. That's simple. And with factoring, you're going to have many customers. You're going to be factoring many invoices. You don't just factor for one client. If you've got 100 clients and you got a cash flow problem, you're literally factoring every invoice. Or you can factor half of them. Really, the choice is up to you. But everybody that you factor, they have to have time in business and they have to have credit worthiness. And the factoring company has their systems to determine that. So factoring is very simple. Do you qualify for real estate financing? Very simple. I ask a few questions, and those questions are going to be uh, property value. What is the property value? Where are you at in the process? You have the appraisal, have you started the title work? And we take an application, submit it to the lender. Before we do that, of course, I explain it to the client. Here's the process. We're going to take an application and collect some information. We're going to submit that package to the lender. 4 hours later, probably by the end of the day, right in that time range, we're going to have a term sheet to share with you. I get the term sheet, I email it to the client. We all go over the term sheet together. It shows payment, cost of money, term, length of the loan, or any other stipulations that need to be fulfilled. Simple. If the client likes what they're seeing and they're good with it, sign it, return it to us, we'll return it to the lender, and the process kicks off from there. Predictable outcomes. People will often ask me, what's the time frame? Well, if we're looking hard money lending, we're literally looking 2 weeks. As fast as the appraisal can get done, as fast as the title work can get done, the money is coming from the lender directly from them. They have immediate control. They don't have to go through committees and get committee approvals. They know they just say yes. So my predictable outcomes are we're going to get a term sheet. I'm going to review it with you. If you like it, sign it, send it back to me, and we're ready to go. So simple as that.
All right, thanks for that share, Paul. Simple as that may not be as simple as that. I mean, the fact is that you have labored here for many years, Paul. It becomes like second nature. It becomes like a walk in the park. But the beauty about working with someone like you is that you have so much of years of experience doing what you're doing. You understand what you're doing, like the palm of your hand. You understand the process. It's because of that you can actually have those predictable outcomes. So I want to thank you for that share.
Yep.
I want to come to Shivani. Shivani is a project management practitioner, and how do you see this question relates to project management, leadership, and the whole issue of predictable outcome? I know in project management we often talk about start date, end date, completion criteria. Perhaps you may look at other factors like the budget for the project, human resources, and so forth. But can you talk to me about the standard that you're holding yourself to in terms of assuring the client of predictable outcome?
So, Gary, if you're a project manager or project leader and you want to ensure that you can, run the project, as I said, from beginning to end with successful outcomes, is it that we would look at the individual with their certifications? Is it we would say, okay, their experience? Is it by the number of projects that they may have run? What are we really looking for with the individual to know that this person, this PM that we put on board now, can really lead this project from beginning to end? So the concept that I want to throw out is really big picture thinking, right? Big picture thinking. You don't want a project manager or project leader now. One of the standards that they must be able to upkeep is to be able to see the whole, right? Big picture. And that's the type of thinking that you want. Now, what really does that mean? What really is big? How do you see the big picture? So as the PM, you need to be able to lead, right? That's what you need to do. You need to be able to lead, because how could you get the outcome that you want from the people if you can't lead? How could you get the outcomes that you want? Yes, you must have the objective. Yes, you must understand benefits and all those great terms, but you have to be able to lead the process and to lead the people, really, right? This process and people. So how do you understand the whole picture and the big picture thinking we see it? You need to set the vision. And this is where the project manager, starts. What do I want from this project? I need to set the vision before anybody else come and tell me what to do. Right? At the end of the day, I'm the leader and I have to set the vision. Where are we going? Where are we going? And once people understand that, that's the type of thinking you want. You want people to really to go with you. How could somebody flow with you if they don't know the vision? So that's what we're saying. You have to create the vision. You have to definitely connect the dots. Connect the in you have to make sure everything is connected. This is part of big picture thinking. And one of my favorite parts of this big picture thinking really would be, you want people, if this is what you're practicing as a leader, as a project manager, you want people to be able to thrive in uncertainty. Right? You want that type of people that really will say, okay, it's uncertainty here, and they would look at things to do to be able to manage properly, manage uncertainty. So, as a PM, as a leader, if you want now to really get the outcomes that you are looking for, what do you do? So we are throwing out the idea of big picture thinking. You have to see everything as a whole. You have to tell people the vision. That's what it is about. You have to tell them the vision. You're not really telling them the vision, Joa. You could facilitate this process of happening because you don't want to dictate. But people need to be guided on what the vision is because you can't get no outcome, right? As I'm sitting here talking, I'm thinking about a couple of projects that I have been a part of. And, that's the first thing. If you don't do that, you're going to lose people. Definitely going to lose them. You need to be able to connect everything. You need to be able to connect because that's what a project is about. Everything must connect. And my favorite for this one is how to manage uncertainty. That is a very, very key skill that you must develop. Yeah, otherwise, things not going to work. You're not going to get the outcome that you want because in project planning, does it always go according to plan? And if it doesn't go according to plan, what do you do? Do you get like, oh my gosh, what to do? So this is what we are saying. You need to manage uncertainty. So the key takeaways really for this part of the conversation that I want to contribute as a project manager, as a leader, you must practice big picture thinking. Right? That's a key skill to have. Don't look at just today for today, but you see the whole thing. That's what it really means.
All right, thanks for that share, Mr. Shivani. And I do believe that big picture thinking is vital in business. It is so vital. But I just want to add a little bit to what you would have said, because what you said, I think, can be looked at from two different perspectives. Or as we attempt to answer this question, leadership and predictability, we have to look at it from two standpoints, because the predictable outcome is influenced by everything in which you started with, selecting the qualified human resource with the knowledge and the experience that has the subject matter expertise. But what I've seen happen very often is that you may have the right individual to execute on the task, but on the other side, you don't have the project owner, do not have adequate budgetary allocation to run the project. So that brings me now, based on the experience that we have been dealing with, is the assessment of the real cost of doing business. Because you as a project manager, you as a manager, you as a leader, when you take a project, even with you not fully understanding the cost, the real cost to run that project, and you start that project, sometimes you get into budgetary allocation problems. And because of that, the project in itself is compromised. One of the things that I find that we have to do now, before we start working with the client, we have to assess where the client is at in terms of budget. And what we have come up with is a high and low budget to move a process forward. And when we recognize that you're below that budget, we say to you that you are not a good candidate. All right. Or if you're below, but you're willing to do some legwork to move your vision forward, we're going to work with you. Like, for example, you may not have cash at hand, but you may have an excellent FICO score. You may have an excellent PAYDEX score, and you're willing to take on debt or equity to move the vision forward. Only in such circumstances we're going to take on that project, because we know for a fact that if we take it on because of low budgetary allocation, that project is going to fail. And that's why we got Paul in the house. So those persons don't have adequate cash, we're going to send him over to Paul. So I really love the statement that you would have made. And I see we're getting some big shout out all the way from Taiwan. So I want to say hello to that young lady from Taiwan who is busy in the chat, reaching out to us. Yeah, so I just want to add that. So we can look at this from two perspectives. The internal factors that is going to help in the predictable outcome. And Shivani, you're right. You want to have the experience and qualified and knowledgeable personnel. But along with that, the project owner, they must be able to make adequate budgetary allocation to move that process forward. Just a quick example before I come to Frank. What the GIP initiative does, it really is designed to help a rising star in business to get visibility. And we have started a number of initiatives and we have seen how it works. In less than 30 days, we have been able to attract over 20,000 new supporters to our platform. And that is music to the ears of any rising star in business because it gives you a great chance to cash flow optimize. But to get to this point, there must be a budgetary allocation to get here. If you don't have that budgetary allocation, we can work with you. So I just want to re-emphasize that point. There's a fast way to get to cash flow, but it's not necessarily cheap. And as time progresses, we're going to go into that. Frank, I want to now come to you. You are in the heart of leadership. What standard do you hold leaders to? Very often, persons can assume to have a leadership position, a leadership role, but does that makes that individual a leader? For me, again, the way that I want to qualify a leader, particularly so in business, is largely based on the fact that they can deliver what I call high reward. Every business want high reward, measurable results. Every business owner want measurable results, predictable outcome, what is visibility, cash flow optimization, whatever that is. And last but not least, you want leaders to who can deliver with the highest degree of accuracy. Can you talk to us about leadership and the standard that you think that they should be held to based on your knowledge of what this platform represents?
Thank you, Gary. All leaders are held to a certain standard, should be held to a certain standard. Because if you're seen as a leader, the business success or failure eventually rests on you. And as such, I want to look at one of the skills that can um, go into leadership, and that is where we talk about decision making. It's an important aspect of leadership skill. Um, the managers use leadership abilities in order to guide their team members. They do that in an effort to improve the organization. So leadership may require managers to make decisions that will impact employees. To make effective decisions as a leader, it may be helpful to understand how that decision-making skills can help you make those tough choices. Um, you may ask, what is decision making? Is a leadership skill that managers use to assess the situation and determine how the organization may proceed. And the decision making process involves steps like identifying the challenge. Well, in this step, what happens is that the manager discovers an issue and determines the circumstances that led to the situation. Then you have to devise solutions. So after learning more information about the case, the manager, the leader, creates one or several possible solutions. But then they have to weigh the options too. So the leader has now to analyze the advantages and the disadvantages of each option and explore alternative solutions if needed. When they have done that, they still have to make a choice. So this is once a thorough assessment takes place, the manager makes a final decision about what action to take. Then when that is done, the other step now is to inform others of the decision. So when you as a leader have a team, you need to inform your employees of the decision that was taken and then explain how the decision will influence the workplace for the better. All leaders of organizations undergo decision-making protocols for several reasons, and that includes implementing new company policies, designing budgets and allocating financial resources, recruiting and training new employees, creating organizational goals. Of course, they have to be into new markets, downsizing or expanding the organization. There's also developing new products and building the company brand. So decision making is an important issue because it helps the managers want to improve the workplace productivity. You see, when you have effective decisions, it can save time and propel projects forward, increasing employee productivity. For example, employees at a small furniture store will disagree about when to post a sale, and this prevents them from promoting the sale and preparing the store for an influx of customers. The manager of the store can announce its sale date in April, and this decision starts a planning process which will motivate employees to complete their associate occupation task. Then there's the creating the action plans when there's an emergency situation. This may require managers to make quick, impactful decisions to minimize damage and optimize benefits. For example, a small town experience a power outage, which we so often have here. And employees at the local groups will become concerned with how this may affect their work hours. It's a leader to decide to open the store operating on a generator and provide work hours for employees who can safely travel to the store. This ensures that employees can work to earn income and the store receives business. So when unexpected situations occur, it's important for the leader to assess organizational needs and decide how to proceed. And of course, which is a must in any organization, the leader has to establish trust with the team. They must establish trust with the team. So once you have a good decision making policy, it can help you as a leader show your team that they value their work and have their best interest in mind. When a leader takes the time to evaluate, to analyze, to explain decisions, he or she also display thoughtfulness and trustworthiness. Employees definitely may feel that they can confide in the managers with their interest and concern once a trust is established. Of course, there is going to be conflict. How do you handle conflict? You see, with the decision-making process, this can decrease conflict by setting clear expectations of your team, which leaves little room for misunderstandings. And so, as a leader, you can provide direction on how your team collaborates to achieve the organizational goals. For example, if you assign teams for major products to distribute the work evenly, deciding on the standards you want for your team can then promote shared understanding instead of confusion. And so, in all of that, leaders may have to have the decision making skills. And there are several skills that you may use in this process. You need to research, be creative, you must have a sense of critical thinking, time management, emotional intelligence are just a few. Back to you, Gary.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. As we speak about leadership and the whole issue of predictable outcome, one of the things that also strike is that leaders need data, all right, because predictable outcome is going to be influenced by your knowledge of people, your knowledge of market, and so much more. While we didn't do a deep dive into data today, I just want to put that as another side of the coin that we need to look at when we are looking at the aspect of leadership in business and the role that data plays in helping to influence predictable outcome. One of the things that I quickly want to chime into, and I want to mention this because what we see happens a lot with a lot of rising stars in business, and you're going to hear me repeating myself on this because I need to. We see very often as a rising star in business, you have a number of beautiful business concepts that is floating around your head. And what we find happens is that you go to market with what we are calling your maximum viable offer. So let's take, for example, what is the maximum? The maximum means that you have 5 great ideas. And because you're excited about all of those ideas, you go to market with all of them right away, not taking into consideration that you don't have Paul on your side. So you don't have access to adequate human resources, you don't have access to adequate technical resources, and you don't have access to adequate capital resources. So what happens to you when you go to market as a leader, excited about the multiple ideas that you have, but then you don't have the adequate human, technical, and capital resources? And this is why we're going to talk now about leadership and effective decision-making process. As a great leader, you need to thoroughly assess where you are in terms of the human resource, the technical resource, and capital resource. And as a rising star in business, when you recognize as a leader you don't have all of these resources, you need to focus on what we call your MVO. In this case, the MVO means your minimum viable offer. Your minimum viable offer means that you have identified the lowest hanging fruit that you can go to market with, and you can make the highest degree of impact with, and cash flow optimize. There's a lot that you need to look at when we talking about going to market with the minimum viable offer. So you either prepare yourself to go to market with the minimum viable offer, which is the 1 in 10 factors of brand selection. You're focusing on the one. Either you're going with the lowest hanging fruit or the highest hanging fruit, which is the most viable offer. The most viable offer means that you're now targeting perhaps the middle income or the upper class with your products and services. But whichever one you choose to go to market with, you're going to market with one. Why? Because you have limited human resources as a rising star in business. You have limited capital resources and technical resources. So because you have that limited resources, you can now commit those resources to move the vision forward. Because even you making a decision now, great leadership and effective business decision that you're going to go with one, there's a lot of work that has to be done. You still want to ensure that you understand the ideal client. You have to do market research. Frank just spoke about that. You still have to be certain that your MVO, your minimum viable offer, or most viable offer, is going to be reaching an urgent and immediate need. Because if you start a business and you're not, as a leader, make an effective decision, you are not taking into consideration if you're reaching an urgent or immediate need. The possibility exists that consumer might say, it's not urgent. I don't need this until the next quarter or till the second Q of 2024. What happens there? It means that you have to wait until such time to cash flow your business model. And that's not what you want. So when we talk about the fastest way to cash flow your brand, there's so much of data analytics that you need to do to ensure that you are in the know and you're making effective leadership and business decision. Not only this, as we talk about the stress test and we talk about data analytics, you also want to be certain that when you identify the ideal client, that when you innovate products and services, that ideal client has the ability and the willingness to pay for your products. And the only way you can do this and know this before you start this process is by data analytics. Again, I'm not going to go deep into it today, but as a rising star in business who wants to position yourself to make great leadership decision, effective business decision, you want to take the time to understand your market. And I'm going to say this to you. You don't understand your market unless you're able to speak to the issue of demographic data, psychographic data, and geographic data. The heart of the consumer base is based on your knowledge of these data, these analytics. So I'm going to pause here for now, and I'm going to open up back to Paul to perhaps talk to us. You can chime into the conversation, and perhaps you can also talk to us some more about another financial instrument and perhaps the steps, the pre-qualification process, that will lead to a predictable outcome. I think perhaps Power Platform is perhaps one of the easiest because he has clear systems. Once you follow those systems, the predictable outcome is there. All to you, Paul.
Thank you. Chiming in on the subject, I can do it real quick and simple. Okay, predictable outcomes comes from doing it the same way all the time, which is a standard operating procedure, which is you should have a bunch of SOPs. So that's my quick chime in on that.
I like
And
that.
yeah, and okay, predictable outcomes with equipment financing. Let's look at two scenarios. Good to excellent credit, more than 3 years in business, making profit and revenue that enables you to make the new payment. That's easy. That's an instant approval. Have that real quick. It's going to be 5 years term for you to pay it off, and you're going to have the lowest cost of money. That's simple and easy. Let's look at the other end of the scale, startup business or difficult credit. Let's go startup business with difficult credit. Can that be accomplished? Let's add in pre-revenue. Startup business, difficult credit, not going to have revenue for 3 months. So how's that look on a term sheet? I can predict with definite accuracy that it will look like this. Cost of money is going to be 15%. No, it's not 13, not 14. It will be 15. You will have 3 to 4 years as your term, not 5. And you're also going to have to put in 6 to 12 of the monthly payments in advance in an escrow so that that payment can absolutely and definitely be paid every month. That's what the lender wants. And they want that because they want their monthly payment. They don't want you to default. They do not want you to miss 3 payments and they have to come get the equipment. They don't want that. So that's why you got to put in 6 to 12 months of advance payments because you're not going to be making money. Where's the payment going to come from? It's got to come from somewhere. You better put it up in advance so it's made. So those are 2 predictable outcomes with equipment financing. And one more, let's go into the middle ground of that. Difficult credit, but you have 3 years or more in business and your company's making a lot of money. I can predict that the term sheet from that type of deal will range. Cost of money or down payment will be required because there's difficult credit. I know that. That's a prediction for sure, and I would bet money on it. So next one is going to be you're going to have you're not going to have 5 years. You're realistically going to have 4 years. And down payment, I can predict that with accuracy. 15. If you get 10%, you're fortunate, and that'll be because you have time in business and experience. More likely, that term sheet's going to say 15%, and it depends on the state of the company. It could be up to 25 or 30% money down to get that deal approved. If there's difficult credit, I can predict accurately that money down is required. So those are 3 scenarios as far as predictable outcomes with equipment leasing.
All right, thanks for that share. Standard operating procedure. I do believe that that is definitely a predictable system that perhaps more attention needs to be focused on. But I love your share. I want to come now to Shivani and ask her to chime in. I mean, your thoughts on the conversation that we're having. From your vantage point, do you believe that it is a must that we hold leaders and professionals to that high standard of, before we are interfaced with them, you are able to be in that position of strength where you know the high reward that you're going to get. You have measurable results, predictable outcome with the highest degree of accuracy. How important is this for you in managing your projects?
So as a project manager, I mean, it all starts with us. We have to lead. So we have to set the direction.
Yeah.
We have to set the direction. But flowing into your conversation, what do we really want from leaders? What about creative thinking? Just as how we have big picture thinking, we want leaders to think creatively as well. In projects, depending on the project that you have to manage, you are maintaining, you are not creating, right? So, like for example, in facilities management projects, the building is created for us to maintain. So, just that word alone might throw us into the thinking that we don't have to create. However, creativity is something that must be there. Um, and personally, I believe that I am more a creator rather than a maintainer, even though I'm in certain professions that are more maintaining. You have to maintain also. But even if you're in a maintaining field, as a leader, as a person in charge, as we say, you want to be able to practice creativity. And what is creative thinking, really? That is something that a leader must have. It's valuing ideas. So there's a saying that goes something like this, where the person, you are not really if you are the leader, you are not valued the most for getting the job done, coming to work. You are valued most is with your ideas. Yeah, might have a lot of conversations around that one, and a lot of people might disagree, because at the end of the day, it's getting the job done. But that is really where management comes in. That's a management talk, where you have to just get the job done. But getting the job done, and when you look at the project at the end, and there's no real great ideas that came out of that, then what? There's no sustainability. So for me, always my perspective in projects, depending on the project that you have, yes, you have to maintain it, but leadership will teach us also that you have to be able to create. So creating really is creativity, right? Creativity is bringing ideas. And even if you are in some type of area that is simply maintaining, as we keep saying, look at what ideas can come out of that. When we don't see ideas coming out of it, we will just finish the outcome, as we say, and you are not able to sustain. You will not be able to sustain. So one of the main points that I will always love to see more of, I'm seeing a little bit, but we need to work at it more, right? As leaders in projects, let us bring more creative thinking to the game. How do we do this? We have to create spaces that will value ideas. Something that we try to encourage is integrate this as part of your lessons learned. At the end of the project or throughout as you're doing your lessons learned, you ask your people what ideas, as we can improve something, which is more creativity. So creative thinking that I also want to bring to the convo here. Yeah. Thanks, Gary.
All right. I love that you put a lot of emphasis on creative thinking. And I do believe that I fall into your boat, where I think that I'm so good at creating that sometimes I just have to ask myself to go slow.
Mhm.
And I say this against the backdrop. I've written so many different books. And it's like every 6 months I want to put out a new book.
Yeah.
And I yet haven't mastered or fully taught from book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So because you're creating so much, it really challenges you to keep up with the entire content to be able to teach. But I want to also add something else to what you said. As we focus on creativity, I do believe that we should also have a system where we can capture creative thinking, where we can test creative thinking, and really move it from the theory into the practice. Because sometimes creative thinking is a theory not proven as yet. And because it is a theory not proven as yet, even among your team leaders, your team peers, you're not able to get full buy-in. So perhaps looking at something like budgetary allocation for creative thinking, where a good idea could be tested very quickly, see the results, adopted and implemented to the organization, can be something that, some conversation for us to have in terms of leadership and the whole issue of predictability. Because the issue of predictability also is that market realities are changing. And when you are not data driven, the predictability indicators may change. But because you're not data driven, you're not keeping abreast of those, uh, you know, data that are changing, that is affecting your ability to predict a desired outcome. So, but I just wanted to add that to some of what you would have said. Great share. I'm going to come now to Frank. Frank, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Can you
Uh,
give me some of your thoughts? We're going to start to wrap up just now.
um, I still want to zero in on the decision making,
Go ahead.
because making decisions is tough sometimes, even if you're under the best of circumstances. And especially when people look to you as a leader to make the final call, it is easy to feel like the future of your career, the future of your team, or if the company is at stake. And history is full of stories about bad decisions, business decisions, that is. And no one wants to be the person who passed for profitable acquisition or missed a major market shift. But someone must be the group whose decision maker. After all, no decision is a decision. And businesses cannot afford to sit still. So how can you improve your ability to make effective decisions? You need to start by assessing your own decision making style. We know there are generally three approaches to making decisions. The first one is consultative, it's where decision making involves soliciting input from others before making a decision. Then there's a directive decision, which means making the decision alone. And then there's a consensus, where decision making is all about involving the team and you make the decision together. But of course, different decisions may require different methods. But every leader will naturally gravitate to one or two of these styles more often. Identify how you make decisions and then learn when to alter your decision making strategy to boost the quality of the outcome. Now, once you have a general idea of how you make a decision, there are four steps to make the most effective decision possible. First one is to define the problem or need. Calvin Coolidge once said, if you see 10 troubles coming down the road, you can be sure that 9 will not into the ditch before they reach you. You see, it's easy to see a cascade of problems and turn them all into something that needs a decision, or to turn a decision to a bigger issue than it really is. So to avoid making decisions for problems or needs you don't have right now, you take some time to clarify or clearly define the current issue. So you make sure you know exactly what the problem or need is, so that you don't spend time on problems or needs that can wait, or that may never become problems at all. And then you analyze the issue at hand. This step is probably one that causes the most analysis paralysis. It's easy to overanalyze a problem or need. So you try to confine your analysis to one issue. What is the importance of this? Who is impacted? If you can look at potential downstream impacts without getting stalled, that's fine. But don't let what ifs delay the decision too long. So you can ask for inputs if necessary. Then you need to implement and communicate. Once you've made a decision, you implement it, you communicate it, and you don't let the time lag between decision and implementation any longer than necessary. If there's a lack of action and transparency, it can lead to distrust and instability in the team or the organization. Then you learn from the process and the outcome. It's tempting to crow about good decisions and weak bad decisions on the road. However, both can offer good learning opportunities about what decision style is best. what level of tolerance your team or company has for ambiguity and so on in addition. If the outcome of a decision is negative, assess it honestly and look for ways to redirect. If you admit and learn from mistakes, it can help you grow the trust among your colleagues. I know making decisions can be risky, and when other futures are on the line, it's tempting to avoid them. But identifying your preferred process and then taking a step by step approach can make that process less risky and more likely to produce good outcomes.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. All right, I'm going to now come around for some closing remarks. But just before I get there, let me say a couple of things. I do believe as leaders, particularly so in business, you want to hold yourself to high standards. And I say this against the backdrop in my experience in dealing with a lot of rising stars in business. They tend to make some kind of budgetary allocation to their vision. And sometimes they interface with leaders that do not fully understand their subject matter expertise to the extent to guarantee predictable outcome. And when that happens, you find that a number of persons who are the consumer base, they tend to feel hurt and betrayed. And this is one of the reasons why I raised the topic, predictable outcome, because I do believe that when leaders take the time to understand their area of expertise, when leaders take the time to understand data analytics, when leaders take the time to understand how data analytics will enable them to achieve the predictable outcome for the client, it puts them in a much better position to deliver quality consistently above and beyond the client's expectation. And there's where you create win-win situation. Clients like you for taking the time to understand their portfolio, and you being in that position of strength to deliver upon their expectations consistently. So we'll have more of these conversations, and as we really expand what all of this means to helping the rising star in business to achieve their business strategic objective. I'm going to now come and ask to Shivani just to get your closing thoughts on today's topic. And all to you, Shivani.
Thanks, Gary. Now, as a project leader, if our thinking, as we keep saying, is very limited, and we keep thinking about just the outcomes and getting the job done, I have continuously seen that we will not have the project, the product of the project may not meet the standard that we want to achieve, because we are just looking at bringing the project to life and to completion rather. You're not looking at sustainability of the project. And this is a very, very big thing that we must think more about. How do we become more sustainable project managers? Sustainability, sustainable thinking for continuing, whatever the project is, how do you operationalize it? And that's where sustainability comes in. How do you sustain? Do you have a sustainable management plan? Are you able to transition this project now within the organization? So big picture thinking helps me to do that, where I could see everything. I could see the thing as a whole, the project, but not only to the end, but to be able to operationalize it as well. So my 3 points here that I really want to contribute: big picture thinking as a project leader. We must do that. We must also practice creative thinking, and that's a concept that we need to do some more deep dive into, and how that can really assist us in projects, which will assist us in business. And my final point really for today, to close off: sustainability, sustainable thinking. don't. I saw a number of projects. One of the examples we had in facilities management, we set up a container, right? I set up a container to do a production studio, and it never came off, right? Now we'll say to ourselves, oh, well, facilities management did the job, right? We constructed, we did the container, and this is going to be a production studio. However, it never came out into what it's supposed to be. And the reason is not we didn't give you the container. That wasn't supposed to be the project itself. We're supposed to have different outcomes and different benefits of it. So the operationalizing of that project was never done to what it was supposed to be. So we give you ask us for something and we give it to you. Right, good. We met the client needs. However, the operationalizing wasn't done successfully. And this is where sustainable project management could have come in. So part of the wrap up for me, big picture thinking, creative thinking, and sustainable project management, sustainable thinking. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Thanks for that share, Shivani. Paula, and I'll come to you. Your closing thoughts on today's topic.
Okay, mine are pretty simple. If you know your product or service inside and out, you're always going to have a predictable result. I would like to try to make it more complicated and sound smarter than I am, but that's as simple as that, in my opinion. And have standard operating procedures. Do it at the same time, all the time, immediately. Those are predictable results. There you go.
All right. Thanks for that share.
Yeah.
Can you walk us back through some of the financial instruments before we close out?
Sure. Equipment financing. We do that through equipment leasing. Sale leaseback. Well, let me touch back on equipment financing. Any industry, any state, any credit, any equipment. That says it all right there as far as us helping you get equipment. Okay. Sale leaseback. If you need working capital, you can get a line of credit. We can help you with that. But sometimes that's not the best way to do it. Or sometimes you cannot get a line of credit because the credit score is not high enough, or you don't have enough time in business. To get a business line of credit, you have to be in business typically, unless there's other circumstances involved, which is very rare, typically more than 3 years to get a good line of credit. So if you don't have good credit, or if you can't get approved for a line of credit, how do you get working capital? It's called sale leaseback. If you own equipment free and clear or with a low balance, that's an asset. We can pull money out of that in the form of a lease. You sell it to a leasing company. We can set that up for you, and they buy it from you, pay you cash. You got your cash. You got your working capital. Make the payments every month. You're going to have a 3 to 5 year window to do that, a term. You own the equipment. But during that time, you keep the equipment. You keep operating with the equipment. You need the equipment to make money. So the equipment never leaves your business. That's sale leaseback. Real estate financing, commercial investment, factoring, purchase order financing, everything industrial hemp fiber we want to work with. If you're listening to this and you're into industrial hemp fiber, we need to talk. Growth capital. Existing companies with strong financials. If you're tapped out at the bank and your assets will not allow you to borrow any more money at the bank, you do have a source. There are investors out there who will issue debt instead of equity. And startups for existing businesses. I think that covers all of them right there.
All right. Thanks for that share. And Paul, in conclusion, I want to thank the viewers from across the world who have taken time to be here in today's program. I see we have persons from all over the world. I want to say a big shout out to Lang from Taiwan, and all the others who are looking at this program and who will be looking at the rebroadcast. I want to encourage you to like, subscribe to the program, and share, so you will be the first to get these content that we are bringing to you on a regular basis. I want to also thank Shivani. Shivani is a project management practitioner, and she has years of experience, and she has that commitment of working with businesses to help businesses to grow and scale. So this is a subject matter expert for you to get to know, like, and trust. I also want to say, and we have Frank. Frank is an economist by profession. He's also a certified lead, and he is the kind of person that you definitely need on your side to really get you soaked into the concept of leadership and the significant role that leadership can play to help you to fast track the growth of your business. Because in fact, your business rise and fall on leadership, and he will teach you all that you need to know about leadership. I also have Paul Whitehouse, and Paul Whitehouse, he has years of experience not only as a real estate investor, but from real estate investment, he is now providing capital to various types of businesses to help them to achieve their business objective. So whether you are into real estate and you need capital to expand your portfolio, and Paul is the kind of guy that will help you to access that. Whether you're in business and you need equipment financing or leasing finance, Paul is the go-to person that's going to help you to access capital. So what we have done here, we have brought together a team of persons, a dynamic team of persons that can really help you through anticipated challenges that you may have in business. And our aim here is to ensure that we get you past those curves as quickly as possible. When you come to us, we're going to definitely be talking to you about the fastest way to cash flow your business. And believe me, when we say that we can help you build systems to start to cash flow your business within 2 to 3 months, and we're talking major cash flow here, we mean it. We're going to expose you to a platform where you can get access to over 2 billion potential consumers. This should be music to your ears in business, but we can do this for you. With that being said, I want to thank my team for being here today again, and we do this again tomorrow. And you guys do have a great week ahead of you. Be blessed and see you tomorrow.